So, Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. You've been keeping up to date with the eurozone's efforts to make our way through this crisis. You feel that maybe it won't recover quite as fast as the United States. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that it's going to be a very, very long and difficult process for the eurozone to recover the GDP of 2019. If we look at what is going on in the employment sector, I think that one of the most important factors is that the eurozone has been able to reduce the levels of official unemployment thanks to the schemes that are a subsidized jobless scheme. However, that is almost 40 million people within these schemes. And what I think is going to be very difficult is to recover those jobs in the way in which they were in 2019. The Eurozone, let's remember, was already in an important slowdown in both 2018 and last year. So the recovery is not going to be as dynamic and productivity driven as, for example, that of the United States. It has significant challenges, starting with the lack of technological leadership. Also, a very bloated government spending that is making it more difficult for the economy to come back as it was in the years in which the Eurozone was growing at about almost 2%, and the aging of the population. That is also a factor that will hinder the ability to grow as much as in the past.
And you mentioned government spending as something that might slow down the recovery, but of course, we've seen a lot of it during the crisis as well, right?
Absolutely. It's usually we hear that government spending is going to boost growth, is going to help the economy come back quickly. However, in countries like the European Union countries, in which the level of taxation is already very high, increased government spending usually means higher taxes afterwards. So usually what we see, for example, is that European citizens, fundamentally households, take decisions of consumption in a completely different way. And they're increasing savings. European companies are also not as dynamic and as growth driven as, for example, the United States ones. The European Union has mostly traditional large companies that have less levels of growth and less ability to come back quickly, as, for example, technology leaders in the United States.
And how about the kind of consumer sentiment? Do you notice people are they going out again? Are they eating? Can you see people in the stores over there?
Yes, actually there is a certain level of bounce in terms of consumption. You see, for example, that in the southern European economies, the return of the hospitality sector is quite strong. However, it's still very much below the levels at which it was in February of this year. So I think it's quite complicated to see households coming back to the levels of consumption that existed in February, January of this year, let alone 2019, because of the high level of unemployment, because the high level of uncertainty about an outbreak, and also because of the increase in food prices, which has actually reduced significantly the ability of people to increase their expenditure in other areas, like, for example, travel and leisure.
Daniel, we'll keep an eye on Europe. Thank you so much for your update. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much.